Good evening, guys, and welcome to In My Unprofessional Opinion. Today we're looking at something, completely separate from sports and entertainment, which we usually cover. I was able to sit down this week with a good friend of mine, Mikey Gilchrist, who you will, if you've watched the channel before, you will recognise him from his football report, and obviously he does do a lot of help as and when I need it, really, if he can. I took a sit down with him and we were talking about mental health, and more specifically his mental health recently, and how maybe him talking about it could help others. So this interview is all about mental health, and how if you suffer from bad mental health, which as we discuss is actually an illness, we will have numbers at the end of the video, at the end of the interview, to contact, and also if you need to contact us as well, we are more than happy to listen. So here's my interview with Mikey Gilchrist. Welcome to In My Unprofessional Opinion, where today I am speaking to good friend, best friend, Mikey Gilchrist. Mikey obviously has helped us out with football reports and quite a few things. But today, nothing to do with sports. Well, it's something to do with sports because it's very prevalent in today's economy, both in sports and in just general life. We're going to be talking about mental health. So, first of all, Mikey, thank you very much for doing this.
No problem.
How are you doing today, first of all?
I think like every day is different. For me just now, as you're aware of, my mental health isn't great. And I think that's why obviously we kind of discussed doing something like this, just to have something a bit different where, you know, I'm not shy about sharing my experiences. And I think, as everyone is aware of anyway, particularly men's mental health is at the forefront of a lot of attention, be that in the media, be that in sport, be that in just general life, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And that is just because men notoriously don't chat, which is sad, and the suicide rate is just incredibly high. But in answer to your question, today fine, tomorrow who knows.
So you mentioned obviously male suicide rate, so we've got kind of stats from 2020, 2021s haven't been released as of yet, or that I could find. It's 15.4 men per 100,000 people in Scotland, which it might not seem like a lot when you're comparing it to 100,000, but that's purely suicide. It's obviously a couple of different factors, but mental health is a massive one. You compare that to the women's side of things, which is obviously still important, still very important, but the number drops from 15 down to 4.6. So, males are more than 3 times more likely to commit suicide. Backed up by stats, that's over from 2020, obviously. 2021 we had COVID and everything like that, which wouldn't have helped anything. But just to go into a wee bit why, obviously, just at the end of the day, you came to me to talk to me about this and putting this out, which first of all is a very brave thing to do, that you might not think that yourself, but it is, because it's obviously going out to a wider audience. Why did you want to do this?
I think, so first and foremost, that, you know, I appreciate that yourself or some other people might think of it as brave, but I think that's, to be fair, and I'm not criticising you or anyone else who would say something like that a man was brave for speaking about it. I think that's part of the stigma that we need to try and get rid of. I think that well, I can understand it. I'm not arguing the point, but it shouldn't be brave to talk to someone. It shouldn't be brave to talk. It shouldn't be brave to talk in front of a camera and talk about mental health, especially at the moment. When you're talking about the rates of suicide there between men and women, I think there's a number of factors for me anyway that I believe contribute to the reasons between such a difference between men and women. Ultimately, it's when it boils down to the bottom. For me, I want to help men, whether that be one man or 10 men or 100 men, be able to open up and to be able to talk. But if there's any women out there at the same time that are going through any mental trauma or any mental health issues, then obviously, I want them to open up as well. And I think it's just the hardest part is, especially for guys, is just getting to that. How do I start that conversation? What mate do I trust? And there's always that misconception that, if you're in a group of guys that take the piss out of each other in a group chat, or if you're in, a group of lads that have grown up together since school and go to the football every weekend, yeah. There's just an automatic thing in your head that if you go, lads, I'm really not feeling great, you're going to get the piss taken out of you, when really, I've suffered with this twice now in my life, and this time has been a lot worse. But I'm really, really fortunate that I've got a lot of friends like yourself, and I've got other friends that I've spoken to about this, and I can guarantee anyone out there that if you are struggling or if you are thinking about speaking to your friends, not one of them will take the piss out of you. And if they did, being really honest with you, they're not real friends, and they're not really decent people either, because you don't do that when someone's really suffering. And if you've been through any sort of mental health issues, or if you've felt anything like that before, then you'll know that it's definitely not something to be joked about, yeah, or to be laughed at.
And you say you've obviously, this is the second time really that this has kind of affected you in, yep, such a way. Of this time, from personal experience, but obviously being with you and stuff like that, would you say that this most recent time it's worse than the first time?
I think this most recent time's probably worse, because so when it happened to me the first time, it wasn't long after my gran passed away. Okay. I think that was my first real, as an adult, kind of dealing with bereavement. Okay. And yeah, not in a sense that no one had died close to me. Like, I had unfortunately had friends that had passed away and stuff. But I think with my gran, someone I'd grew up with, and someone that had been in my life for so long, from the moment I was born, yeah, to lose her, really, really got me, and I didn't really know what I was going through at that point, to be really honest with you. I just kind of lost myself, and I felt sad, and I felt angry, and I felt, I was taking out on people, and yeah, just not being myself, and ultimately, bearing in mind that this is like 10, 11 years ago now, I went to the doctor at that point, and early 20s. Yeah, spoke to the doctor, and the doctor basically took a lot of time with me. I can't advise, especially if you are uncomfortable speaking to your mates, just go to your GP. Yep. And my GP was absolutely fantastic, and put me on a course of medication, and kept in touch with me, and ultimately I managed to get through it. I think this time, being a bit older, there's a lot more involved in it this time.
Yep.
And to be honest with you, like, I think that, without getting into too much detail about it all, there's levels of guilt involved with what's going on this time, and the more sort of emotions like guilt, like grief, like sadness, the more emotions that you drag into how you're feeling in terms of depression, anxiety, the more emotions like those things that mix into the pot. If you imagine that being like a cauldron, yep, it just starts to bubble and bubble and bubble, and ultimately it just becomes a messy situation, and I think that's what's made it a bit worse this time.
So obviously the first time, as you say, it was bereavement. This most recent time, it's a breakup.
Yep.
Which obviously is different, but you're still going through that. You would still go through the same, I suppose, grief process, because I suppose you're probably a bit better to elaborate on that.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a breakup in the sense of, I'm not blaming anyone for what's happened. To be really blunt, it's myself at fault in the situation. So that's probably where the guilt and the blaming in this situation comes from.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's not solely stemmed from that of how I'm feeling. I've been on one of the many drugs that are prescribed to you when the GP feels that it's the right time, is one called citalopram. Yeah. Some people might be familiar with that, some people might not. But I've been on citalopram for quite a while now. I think again, like most men and women, during lockdown, I really struggled. I'm not the type of person that deals well with being kind of locked up inside and the world was shut down, and I really struggled with that. And I think part of the problem was that I did sit on it for a while and I didn't really realise what was going on until maybe it was a bit too late.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah, I was already in a pretty bad place. No, I say a pretty bad place. I wasn't in a great place. Before myself and my ex-partner separated, and obviously I've got two daughters that they're the light of my life, and to be away from them is difficult.
Yeah.
But I'm in a really fortunate situation where my daughter's mum is one thing I will say is that she's amazing in the sense that she would never keep them from me, or she would never use them against me, or she's just not that type of person. So I'm really fortunate in that sense, because there are guys out there, and that's obviously one of the main causes of suicide and depression, unfortunately, is in situations where women, a man and women split up, and the woman either lords a new relationship over the man, or the woman uses the kids to really get to him. Yeah. Now, that could be that the man did something that he shouldn't have done, or for whatever reason the woman's decided to do that. It's not nice. But again, I'm in a situation where I'm just sad, and I miss. I think when you start to compartmentalize, things that you could have done better, should have done better, you start to beat yourself up. And it's easy to say, you get up and you focus on the good and you move on, and there's all these things. Like, I understand that some people get a kick out of these motivational videos that you see on YouTube and you see on Instagram, and the Rocky Balboa speeches, and I completely get it. I get why people get motivated by it, in sales offices and stuff. I've seen them all. Yeah. The American voice that comes over the trailer, and don't let it stop you. Get up. I was down 3 times and I got back.
The picturesque view of the mountains.
Yeah,
and just the sea.
For me, that's not real. Like,
no. Yeah.
The people like Gary Vaynerchuk and stuff, like, completely fair dues to them and what they've done in their life, but when people come out and say things like, no matter what it is in life you want, you'll get it. That's not true.
No.
You can work hard and you can strive to be the best version of yourself, and you can drive towards goals, but realistically, the attitude I think to have is wake up in the morning and just take something small that you have in your life, and for me it's my daughters, and be thankful that that's what you've got. Like, just be thankful about one thing, and it doesn't matter if it's be thankful. And this might sound a bit like deep, but be thankful if I'm alive. Be thankful I've woke up in the morning, because it's again is really as sad and as deep as it sounds. Like, some people don't get that. So, you know, I know guys that, you know, 23, 24, 25-year-old that have went to bed one night and not woke up the next morning for absolutely no reason.
Yeah.
And I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but, you know, it's, you know, none of this, like, yeah, obviously set yourself goals and have ambition in life. I'm not saying don't do that, but just wake up in the morning and just be thankful that you've woke up, and be thankful for just one small thing. And really, that's really for me where it needs to start in terms of mental health.
Yeah, well, obviously you say that with it's kind of be thankful that you're still there. Be thankful that you were lucky enough to obviously open your eyes that morning. Like, I woke up the other morning to find, without obviously diving into medical history, to find a text for you telling me that you were in the hospital in the morning. Now, that obviously thankfully wasn't anything. It was serious, but it wasn't anything overly serious.
Yeah.
And you're obviously you're here, you're sitting here, thankfully. But obviously, like, if that had happened when you were sleeping, for example, it could have been obviously completely different.
It could have been.
So I 100%, I can appreciate that. The whole kind of like be thankful that you're there, and pick one thing. Like, do you find that as, obviously it is affecting you, as you've said, but do you find that as like a coping mechanism, or have you found you want any coping mechanisms for yourself at the moment?
I'd love to be able to sit and say that, you know, to people out there that are suffering from mental health issues, that this is like a video where I'm going to give you magic tips and tricks because I've been through it.
If it was, then I would be selling it and you wouldn't be getting it for free. It's
not that. I mean, it's as we've, you know, as I've said, it's something I'm going through right now, and there's like, I've not really found my coping mechanism yet. I think, as I said, like, I wake up in the morning and I focus on the wrong things, to be honest, a lot of the time. I'm an overthinker, and I wish I could change that, but it's difficult. As anyone that's watching this that is an overthinker will probably know. And, you know, like, I spoke to my GP last week, and you know, it was actually really good, because I spoke to him about feeling paranoid and feeling things that I've never felt in my life before, like real paranoia, real just constant buzz in your head of stupid thoughts. And I don't mean suicidal thoughts, like I'm going to go and jump off a bridge right now.
I'd rather that you didn't.
I'm not at that stage, but you know, there's just thoughts that run through your head, and your mind just starts to play, and that's ultimately what it is when your brain starts, or should I say stops, releasing serotonin, and other chemicals start coming into play. Your mind literally starts just taking over and playing tricks on you, and it does a lot of damage. You know, it really does. People who are really fortunate, and I hope that's most people that are watching this, that I've not been through any sort of mental health issues, which you'd be surprised is such a low number, because a lot of people, especially guys, actually are in mental health issues. Sorry, having mental health issues, don't even know they're having them.
Or they just don't want to talk about it, as obviously this is the whole point of this. They just don't want to say it to anyone.
But yeah, I mean, it's. I described myself as feeling like I was crazy, like a mental doctor. I feel so paranoid. I can't sleep. You know, having these. I just can't stop thinking. I can't turn my mind off. I can't eat because I'm not hungry. And my doctor could have said a million and one things that wouldn't have made me feel better.
Yeah.
But he just went, that, what you've said there, like, he went, and do you think that's out of the blue for you? Like feeling like paranoid? I said, yeah, 100%. Like, I don't. He went, exactly.
Yeah.
And it was at that point, it sounds so simple, right? But it was at that point you go, shit, like, I'm not in my right mind. Like, you know, I'm not crazy. It's just this illness. Because, again, that's one of the biggest problems with mental health as well. Mental health illness. It is an illness. It's not that people are crazy. It's not that people have got something wrong. It's not something wrong. Yeah. Like, and I'm not comparing the two, but if someone has, you know, like someone has cancer, someone has HIV, someone has COVID, anything like that, right? It mental health illness can kill you.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know, it's not like a case of, oh, why are you comparing it to cancer and why you compare it, like they are completely separate, completely different things. Yeah, okay, they are, but it's still an illness. It's still a problem that you need to go and see a doctor about. It's still an illness where most of the time, or a part of the time, you really need to consider medication for.
Yep.
So as I discussed, I'm on a thing called citalopram, and I'm also on another thing called propranolol. The propranolol is a beta blocker, which I take for anxiety. The citalopram is for depression.
Okay.
And ultimately, the citalopram just boosts your serotonin, and the propranolol stops you from feeling like you're on edge all the time. That being said, they're not like miracle pills where you take them every day and you go, you know, I don't feel unwell anymore. I feel like I'm great. I feel like I'm going to go to work. I feel like I'm going to go and have a great time. They just kind of make you feel a bit plateaued. But ultimately, you still need to try and help yourself every day.
So, obviously, you said that like, mental health is an illness, which it 100% is. And I think we've spoken about this before, that we've both lost friends to suicide. Obviously, whether it's something that someone feels like they can't speak about to anyone, is that it isn't that you are like quote unquote mental or crazy. It's like I would always just say if you phoned me or texted me or anything, I'll always obviously let you talk to me and vent, and I'll give my like help, I suppose. But I mean, I've maybe not nowhere near like the kind of the level that you're feeling. Felt a little bit of depression, maybe, but that I can only, especially in the current situation, personally, I can't give you any like help from experience, unfortunately. But like if you're just from my point of view from that, if you are a friend of someone and they come up to you and they say, "Oh, listen, I'm not feeling great," or "Listen, can I speak to you for 10, 15 minutes?" Like just let them talk to you. Don't try and be like this miracle helper, but give your opinion or give what you think. It might actually help them. Like this, as you said, you can talk to me. You've got another couple of mates that you can obviously talk to as well. Have you found that anything specifically like kind of triggers like a feeling or like a specific feeling of being really down?
No, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say so. I think like I think being alone is not great. I think when you're alone, you get inside your own thoughts and you get inside your own head. I think being alone is not ideal. You know, I think that if you get to a stage where you know you have depression, you've spoke to a doctor about it, I think it's important that you don't stop there. I think like you need to either find, you know, one of the registered charities and try and kind of open up through that, or speak to your GP about counselling, or speak to your friends. It doesn't necessarily, like, listen, I get some people don't want to open up to their friends. Like, it is okay not to do that. There are other ways to do things. Like, there's a reason that some of these other support networks are in place.
Which I will put up at the end of this video, by the way. There will be a list of numbers and support.
But I think if you're out there and you're concerned about one of your friends, I think you're just as responsible as they are to talk. So by that, I mean, I think it's on you as well, like, to go, instead of, like, if one of your mates is, for lack of a better phrase, being a prick, if you've noticed that a guy that you've known for a long time that goes out every Saturday is no longer going out, or is going out for too long, like if he's going out in the afternoon and then going out at night, or if he's become more irritable, or if he's, become more quiet, or if he seems like he's overcompensating with humour, for example, that's my mask, if you will, is and it always has been, is humour. I always try and make a laugh and a joke about things, and that's how, for example, Robin Williams is one of the prime examples. Yep. There's a lot more than him, to be fair, but Robin Williams is a prime example of what, people with depression, long-term depression, can get locked in behind this facade and this mask. One of the funniest men
in the world.
Exactly, and look how troubled he was.
Yeah.
But when I'm saying, like, look out for these signs, there's not always a sign, because as I said earlier, sometimes the person that has depression doesn't even know themselves, which sounds ridiculous to say, but it's true. I think it's just about, be honest, just for guys, just grow the fuck up. Like, well, it doesn't matter whether you're 15, it doesn't matter whether you're 55, like, just seriously check in with your mates. Like, I'm not saying you can't, but, like, in some ways the world's going soft and you can't make a joke about anything anymore, and I don't want to go off on a tangent about that, but I'm not saying you can't have a laugh and a joke with your mates anymore. Obviously you can, but there is still a moment where you should be saying, are you alright? Like, it's like 3 seconds that took to say, are you okay? Like, just to check in. And if you really, really, really think that there is something 100%, call it out. Because what would you rather have? Would you rather have a 5-minute argument with your mate because you've annoyed him enough that he says, look, there genuinely is nothing wrong with me, fuck up? Or
which we've had that conversation before, you asking
or
me.
Would you rather have a quick question, you don't probe, and then God forbid the worst happens, and you then spend however long regretting not pushing for that for God knows how long, because it goes from the strongest men that you would think, oh, you never do that, to the people who you think, I really wonder if he's alright, but then it's been too late to ask. So just
doesn't matter how successful they are either.
No,
be at the most successful point of their life.
It doesn't. Well. It doesn't. I mean, that's the scary thing about it. It's a scary thing about depression, and I think the scariest thing about the human mind is just we don't even unlock 70% of the capacity of what it's capable of doing, and I think one of the scariest things is that, as you said there, it really doesn't matter whether it's a multi-millionaire with everything in the world or a homeless guy who has absolutely nothing. It literally will just attack anyone, any age, any creed, any culture. So, yeah, just seriously just start talking.
And it's one of those ones as well. Like, look, we obviously, both of us grew up in sport and in locker rooms and that whole kind of, or changing rooms, or locker rooms, whatever, if you want to be American or British about it. But that whole kind of locker room mentality as well, like that is detrimental to guys, and like, as you say, that's the whole kind of like taking the piss. Like you think everybody will just take the piss out of you, but like sports teams are that for they're a team for a reason. Like obviously, I don't know how. Obviously, we've known each other for 7 years now. Before that, I don't know how often you would like open up to someone, but I know for a fact that I personally really didn't. Like I'd no need to, but like nobody would ask the question or anything like that. It's
yeah, I mean, like the thing with sport in terms of how it's affected, I think, generations is, you know, you grow up in that changing room environment. It's all man up this and grow up here, and if you've got an injury, you just like even now, you know, like the toughest footballer's the one that, you know, gets a big gouge in his leg and just wraps it up and gets back in the pitch and all that kind of stuff. And that, like, it is admirable. It is tough. Like, I mean, if I had a big gouge in my leg, I'd absolutely no qualms in saying I'd probably be off. Like, I'm not interested in damaging myself. But that carries itself with the same stigmas that we've been talking about. Like these changing room environments are part and parcel of the reason of why there is a generation of especially young men in the ages between 25 and 40 that have the issues, that they don't want to speak about their mental health and they don't want to speak about anything.
Toxic masculinity comes to mind. It's obviously a different branch of toxic masculinity than what's normally mentioned. Obviously, there's the branch of like sexism and everything like that, but
I'm not sure I understand.
That's silly, not understanding what sexism is apparently, which is very worrying. But yeah, like, it's that kind of toxic masculinity where you're like, just like, oh, I have to put on this brave face, I have to. And it's the whole, it's like a different, it's like, be a man will define what be a man means. Like, now, being a man means coming out and talking and speak to your mates about mental health, which is obviously, it dominates news stories, maybe not so much with COVID and stuff, but it dominates news stories with, as we said, the statistic at the start of the video of, like, compared to women, men are 3 times more likely to commit suicide, which is obviously a shocking statistic and all that. And it should never be that high for both sides, men and women. Like, if obviously we're kind of wrapping this up, obviously we're getting towards the end of it, what would you say, like, if you just speak directly to someone, like that one person that's watching the video now, just what would you say to them, like, based on your experiences of going through of having mental health?
I think the first thing I would say is speak to somebody, as I've pointed out throughout this. Be that a doctor, be that a friend, be that a teacher, be that a boss, a work colleague, anything. Sometimes people find it easier to speak to somebody that they maybe don't know that well, rather than a close friend, and I think the reason from that comes from just the kind of British mentality where, you know, it's not natural that someone would judge you to your face straight away. Yeah. If you don't want to talk to someone in that situation, then there's so many counselling groups out there. It doesn't make you any worse of a person. That, you know, this is, if you had woke up one morning and you had a pain in your back, might not go to the doctor. If you woke up after 2 mornings with the same pain, again, you might just go on with it. You know, as if we're going down the same road, when we're talking about mental health, is something like that. You might be a big tough guy and go, I'm sore back, I'll go on with a couple of painkillers, I'll be back. But if you still had that pain after 3 weeks, there's a high chance you're going to go to the doctor. So see if you're waking up in the morning and out of absolutely nowhere you can't be asking up. Now I don't mean like no one can be asking up in the morning when they're going to work. But I mean like one of the telltale signs is a change in your natural behaviour. So one of the biggest things for me, and this is what I mean, it's just something, everyone's going to be different. Not everyone's going to feel this. But I started driving about with no music on, no radio on, nothing, just silence. And that might sound like nothing, but for me that was, when I thought about it, what I was doing, I was like, I've never done this. This is like, I've always got TalkSport on, I've always got a podcast on, or I've always got Spotify on, or whatever it might be. But to drive about with nothing on all the time, it just that's not me. And on top of that, when you have an event in your life when you have something in your life like a death or a breakup or any sort of loss or any sort of change, it's always worthwhile just trying to evaluate yourself and actually just, what can be sometimes worthwhile is just get one of your friends round and start talking to them, and you might actually find that the more you talk, you might actually go, shit, do you know what, I think I might actually have a bit of an issue here because I've not actually opened up about this. Yeah. I've lost my job, I've split up with my girlfriend, split up with my boyfriend, whatever it might be. But I'm okay. But then you start talking to someone and you go, I'm really not okay. I think, listen, like, I have up days, I have good days, and I have bad days. I'm not scared to admit that some days I sit on this couch and I don't move off it. Some days I don't even get out of bed. Some days I do not get out of bed when I don't have my daughters. And that really isn't me. But sometimes you just want to be in a dark room with nothing. Yeah. But as I said, ultimately, don't be alone. There's so many groups out there and so many counselling sessions. There's so many things online. There's so many things on YouTube. I actually just want to make a quick shout out. I hope he doesn't mind. But I actually reached out to a former professional footballer, Ryan Stevenson. Only because I know that he went through something of a similar situation to something I was going through. It's not with comparison. I don't know the ins and outs of his life and what he's done. I know that the slight there's very, very light brush strokes that are similar to what I was going through. And he could have ignored my message. He could have said, look, mate, I don't know you like that well. Like here's a website, go and look at it. But he didn't. He spent however long typing out so much advice, and then he asked me questions to draw me back into a conversation, and then come back to me, and then asked me to just drop him a message and let him know that I was okay, and anything I needed moving forward, just to let him know. And this isn't like from some of the stuff I know about Ryan. I know he's a good guy anyway, but that's a guy who was talking about sport earlier, and that football dressing room mentality and football in general, lads. That's a guy that's grown up in that environment from a professional standpoint, but has got the decency and the balls to just go, do you know what, like, this guy's suffering, I'm going to help him. And I really, really appreciated that, and I couldn't thank him enough for the advice that he gave me. So there's another example. It doesn't need to be a mate. It can be someone. Thankfully, listen. There's message a celebrity or a pro footballer, a pro athlete on Instagram. There's a high chance you're not going to get anything back. Yeah. But I was in a fortunate situation that I just messaged a decent one and he come back to me. So, you know, just the only other thing I would end this on is by saying it really doesn't matter how well we know each other. If you're Colin's friend and watching this, if you're my friend, if you're a complete stranger, Colin will stick my details on to the end of this video. I'm not an expert. I'm not a doctor. I'm not claiming to know everything about mental health. I'm not claiming to know everything about how to fix mental health. I'm still really struggling. So I definitely don't know. You know, there's no magic fix. But one thing I will do is I'll talk to anybody and try and help them. And if there is any light I can shed on any of my personal experiences that I've had, or anything that I can give them to draw upon, or anywhere I can send them to potentially try and work on it, then I'll 100% do that, and it'll be completely discreet, and you know, and there'll be no judgment regardless of what situation you're in. As I said, I'm not gonna sit here and blame anyone else for how I'm feeling. You know, it's one of those things that's come on, and I've not helped myself through things that I've done. But yeah, just guys, just start talking, start looking after each other, and yeah, that's pretty much where.
Perfect. Well, I'll certainly echo those sentiments. I'll, even if it's just messaging the page, I'm more than happy to answer anything. Even if you just want to message the page to get something off your chest, there 100% would be no judgment on my part. It's more than open for you to do that. I will, as Mikey said, I'll pop his details up there as well, and we'll also pop up at the end just shortly a list of numbers and charities and different help groups that you can phone or contact or email, because if it helps one person, as we said, it's worth it at the end of the day. I just want to wrap up by saying thank you very much for doing this. Obviously, well, I'll be checking in with you every day basically anyway, but hopefully we can get you back on at some point in the future, and we can talk about it again, how it's been going and stuff like that, as obviously as an option going forward.
Yeah, I mean 100%. I think just one thing to, again, just, I know we are wrapping up, and one key point to finish on just there is just remember that when people do open up, well, I spoke to the people who may be suffering mental health issues, and what I would advise them to do. I think the one thing I would say to people who are receiving someone who's going to open up, you know, obviously I've said there about giving advice to people who should open up and what to say and when to say it. I think for the listeners to those people, you know, I think it's important that, you know, I'm actually going to talk as well to employers, because there's one of the biggest problems as well with this is people use this term where they're at it, or they're faking it, or they're doing it to get attention, or they're doing it to get sympathy. And listen, if someone's watching this and thinking that that's what you're doing or I'm doing, that's absolutely fine. I really don't care, because you know, I'm genuinely not in a position where I really give a shit about what anyone's really thinking about how I'm feeling. So I'm fine with that, but don't ever dismiss someone that is trying to open up to you, because that's another problem where, you know, people try and say, oh, you know, look, I'm actually feeling really shit at the moment, and someone might say, oh, you're at it, come on. Like, then that just takes someone so much courage to come up to a point where they go, I'm going to talk, and then you just stifle them straight away, and they just go back into their shell, and that's it. You might have lost that opportunity. So yeah, just that would be the kind of last thing for me. Thanks very much for allowing me to to speak, and as Colin said, if one person watches this and it makes a difference, I'm happy with that.